If you really want to surrender, if you really want something, you've got to be willing to die. You've got to be okay to not have that thing. It's okay to want it, right? And of course, want it. There comes a point where you have to let go and stop micromanaging and stop losing your everyday joy and trying to play God and really allow God to do his thing. Welcome to The Introverted Influencer, the podcast for the woman who's over getting advice from 20-year-old business coaches on Bali sabbaticals and seven-figure entrepreneurs who only share their wins. I'm your host, Erica Van Slyke, blogger turned soulpreneur, mom of two, and a mentor for women done with the hustle. Here, sacred strategy meets feminine flow, and we expose what it really takes to build a business grounded in purpose, not trends. A brand that moves with your rhythm, not the algorithm, because you didn't leave your 9-to-5 grind just to build a shinier cage with your name on it. Well, hello, my love. Welcome back to episode 91 of The Introverted Influencer. I hope this episode doesn't come off as being too much of a downer. I'm not even really sure what the title's going to be yet, but it does have to deal with death, but not in such a physical sense, more of an egoic kind of death. But also I just have dealt with loss of a pet. So that's just kind of a trigger warning. If you've been following along with me, I actually lost my hound dog a few months ago, back this spring, like really unexpectedly. But she was 14 years old. So that's a pretty good life, but it was just unexpected. And we had been preparing for the loss of our first fur baby. My husband and I got a rescue dog right after we got married 16 years ago. And he had really been going down the tubes with his health for, probably 2 years now. And after the loss of his best friend, his sister, Layla, hound dog, Ruxpin really started to go even worse downhill this summer. So the theme, I'm just dealing with death in that sense. And then also it is in numerology, and I guess it's like Chinese astrology. It is it's a 9 year, which means it's a year of completion collectively. And so things are dying off. And then it's really interesting and as well. If you've listened to some previous episodes, I've really been falling into the spiritual wisdom of Kabbalah. And this is a year where there are a lot of unexpected deaths, especially pets. And it's pretty cool because it's more of this karmic thing of you're losing animals, pets, maybe unexpectedly because they're now ready to evolve to like a human soul. So that's really cool if you're open to the idea of reincarnation. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't hurt like hell, because it does, but that kind of gives me a little peace. So with that, before I get into kind of the lesson, the message I want to share with you, I just want you to know that hopefully I'm not going to break down and lose it, but we did make the tough decision 2 days ago. We finally put our baby Ruxpin down. It was such a hard decision, but at the same time, when we got into it, I feel like he was ready. And so that helps me be at peace. And so anyhow, we're all dealing with themes of shedding and things dying off. We're completing cycles, and life is cyclical and seasonal, and there are beginnings and endings, right? So anyhow, I just kind of today I wanted to pose this idea to you and take with it what you will. It was actually, I can't take credit for it entirely because it was a meme that somehow popped up in my social media feed, like I think at the very beginning of summer. And I wish I could remember who posted this, but it said, when something wants to die, let it. And that hit me in so many ways because I felt it not only with my baby, my fur baby, but I'm in this messy phase of like, who the fuck am I? Am I an influencer? Am I a blogger? Am I interior designer, Erica? Or is all of these difficulties I'm having and like the slowing down of all that momentum that I had for 10 years, is that meaning it's that version of me is time to die, and it's time for me to show up in a new way, basically. And then there's like this phase of completion with the innocence of my son, my older son that's going into middle school this year. And it's like that death of innocence. And it makes me so sad. Did I miss out? Was I not entirely present because I was so focused on this future version of like, when my business is in this place, when my income is here, then I'll lean more fully into just like enjoying motherhood, right? So there's just so many, it feels like, completions and endings. And I know so many of you are going through it as well. Cause like I said, it's a collective energy. And then on top of that, what makes it like probably even more intense for me is that it's my personal numerology. I'm actually in a personal 9 year as well. I just want to put it out there. Like, are you hitting a brick wall because you're not letting something die? Are you going through the ringer, in a relationship, business, maybe just a strategy or an income portal or a client, that's kind of putting you through hell because it's not aligned anymore. It's run its course. And now all it's doing is creating problems and strife and stress because you're clinging. And putting my poor little Rexfin fur baby down this week, it was so fucking hard. But the hardest part actually was getting in the car and taking him to the vet and doing what I know I should have done probably months ago, because his health had gotten so bad. It wasn't even him anymore. It was just, we couldn't even really enjoy him. He was in such bad health, but it's like I had to keep him alive for maybe my own selfish purposes, and to where the ending was not, it really wasn't idyllic. It wasn't, I don't know that I did anybody any good, but that's not the point. We can't beat ourselves up for over the past, but I see these in my life. I see how, my God, why didn't I just let something die? Like toxic relationships. And it ends up bringing out the worst in you and the worst in the other person. And you can look back and be like, why did I stay for so long? I wasted so much time. Or I've been in situations where you overgive in a professional like client dynamic to the point where you just get resentful. And it's like, why did I let it go on for so long like that? When you knew you were in a low self-worth position. Even like business, I've called myself out in older episodes on this show of how I found myself being in a really out of aligned place in terms of how I was trying to keep my passion, my blog of 10 years alive, and kind of getting into these strategies that I knew were like soul sucking and so not in flow or inspired or even surrendered. It was like this force of just trying to keep something alive. Quick pause, you beautiful soul. So if you've been vibing with this episode and you are building a brand, a blog, or even a brick and mortar business, I would love to support you in your journey. I am so freaking excited to announce that I am now offering one-on-one consulting for creatives and entrepreneurs who want to grow with their feminine flow, their soul essence, and are over the hustle, over the burnout, and done spinning their wheels on strategy that doesn't even fucking convert. To learn more about my offerings and to book something with me, head on over to introvertedinfluence.com. And now let's get back into it. And in a lot of the recent, what's been my silver lining in these spiritual teachings of Kabbalah lately that have really helped me to surrender is, and I'm going to reference David Guillaume again because he's the man, and that's who I've been learning Kabbalah from. I've gotten his courses online, and he talks about if you really want to surrender, if you really want something, you've got to be willing to die. And what does he mean by that? You've got to be okay to not have that thing. You've seriously got to, it's okay to want it, right? And of course want it. But there comes a point where you have to let go and stop micromanaging and stop losing your everyday joy and trying to play God and really allow God to do his thing. So some recent revelations that have come through. I told you about my soft girl summer and just leaning into this last chapter of childhood and innocence with my older son. So I decided that I wasn't going to send him away or send him to camp or do any of that. I wasn't going to stay on the content hamster wheel this summer. I was just going to focus on him. And what did that mean for me? That meant putting aside my ego, allowing my desires, my wants, my goals out of my blog, my business to die, because I knew I didn't have the capacity to serve clients and go hard on all the things I needed to do in terms of the blog and content creation and have the bandwidth to also be present for my child. So I made this decision, even though it seemed like the opposite of logic, I told myself, I'm willing for the blog. If it means the blog has to die and I lose my business of 10 years that brought me so much joy, was my identity forever, I'm putting it on the altar this summer. And God, I hand it over to you, and whatever happens, happens. And I'm okay with that. That's an ego death. Not saying there weren't times when I wanted to kind of freak out and scramble and dog paddle, but I've laid it on the altar. I'm willing to lose it. By golly, y'all. Some really crazy opportunities have come through the past month for me through my blog, like sponsorship deals that I'm like, why would you choose me? I haven't even showed up on Instagram for like a month. I feel like a lot of my reach has been in the gutter, but I'm not going to turn it down. And I'm not saying that's a sign that by the time it's all over, that this is what, that God really has in mind, that my blog will be redeemed. I don't really know, but that's just an act of surrender, I think. This ego, it's an ego death, saying you're willing to die, of like, okay, I'm calling in love, I'm calling in connection, but I know I'm in this toxic dynamic. I've been in plenty before in the past, and I've got to let this toxic dynamic die, even though all I want is love, but I've got to let this go to make space for something better. And I can tell you, that's exactly how I found my husband of 16 years. I was in a relationship with a cokehead, alcoholic, narcissist, liar. And all I wanted was love. And all I wanted was for it to work and for him to change. And I did everything I could to fix him. And the moment I said, I'm done with this, I've got to let it die, that's when I met my husband, a few weeks later. So I don't know how specifically this may be pertaining to you, but it's not even that everything that needs to die was inherently bad or wrong or out of alignment for you, because a lot of things do start off as being super aligned and beautiful, but everything has a shelf life, because this life, it's not set in stone. It's constantly flowing and changing. Like I said, it's seasonal, it's cyclical. That's nature. That's how life works as well. And this is also not to shame you if you're supposed to let something die, but you're not ready, because there's a lot of power in that. And I can tell you, actually, through firsthand experiences, just a few minutes ago, I was saying, I could beat myself up over why did I try to keep my dog alive when I know he really wasn't enjoying it as much as he could be. But then in that same sense, when the time did come a few days ago, I had so much more peace. It's like I had to let it get bad to have that peace, if that makes any sense. So I don't want to shame you. And that happened to me, multiple toxic relationships where you do kind of let it go past the point that you should have let it go. But in some way, you can also use that frustration, that anger, you can kind of transmute it into this knowing of I am so done, or that was so done. So it's all good, either way. But I wanted you to at least think about it. if you've lost momentum, if you're losing peace, if you're resentful, if you're anxious, if you're clingy, if you're like, who the fuck am I? I'm like micromanaging so much shit. And like, who have I become through this? Like, you're not even enjoying your life because you're so clingy. This was just simply to ask you, like, what in your life wants to die, but you're not letting it. And you'll know when the time is right. We're all on our own path. We all deal with things differently. So no shame, honey. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, and I will talk to you again really soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We could keep on spreading the word about this podcast. And 2 ways you can help me out is by leaving me a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this episode on, or you can actually take a screenshot of this episode and tag me over on Instagram at Designing Vibes. And of course, I would love you to DM me whatever resonates, and I am sending you so much love.